Welcome, y'all. Mic check. Hope you can hear me good. Everybody, welcome to the relaunch of the Community Soldier podcast, hosted by me, Justin Counts, one of the many community soldiers out here representing for Jackson, Michigan. Just real quick before we get into tonight's discussion, I want to let y'all know what the Community Soldier podcast is going to be about. We are going to be a weekly podcast where we talk about local issues, local resources, and places that we can get help. We will have guests on our show that work in different sectors of the community service field out here in Jackson. So we'll make sure that y'all stay updated with the newest happenings of what's going on in the town, right? All right, guys. So let's get into it. Hope y'all. What's up, man? Welcome back to Community Soldier, where we keep it real about what's going on in our local community. I'm your host, Justin Counts, and today we're going to dive into something that's hitting hard right here in Jackson, which is the housing crisis. Now, I know a lot of y'all out here are feeling the pressure, rents going up, your places falling apart, and it's just getting harder to keep a roof over your head, right? This episode, we're going to talk about why that's happening, who's responsible, and what we can do about it. All right. So, first things first, I'm going to always hit y'all with the facts, right? We always got to have. Did you know that over 50% of renters in Jackson are struggling and they're spending more than 30% of their income just on rent? That means half of us are struggling to keep up with these bills. And let me tell you, it's not easy. On top of that, rent prices have gone up by more than 20% in the last 5 years. That's crazy, right? 20% in the last 5 years. Houses that used to be $700 a month now are $9,000 and $1,000 a month. On top of that, to be even approved to rent that house at $1,000 a month, you have to show that you make 3 times the amount in rent. So that's $3,000 that you have to show. And I know many of us out here are single parents, and I don't know many single parents that make $3,000 a month. I myself am really shy of that myself. So that's crazy. So, that just means that a lot of people out here struggling to pay their other bills because they're spending more than half of their income on just rent alone. More than half. That means if you make $2,000 a month, which a lot of people do, about $2,200 a month, you're spending half of your income just on rent. But listen, we ain't gonna just talk about the problem. We're also gonna look at some of the solutions. We got some solid folks on the ground, a lot of nonprofits and community groups who are out here fighting the good fight with us, trying to make sure that everybody is safe and affordable place to call home. So let's get into it. So the first segment, we're going to talk about the current state of housing in Jackson. So let's start with what's really going on in the housing around here. I'm talking about availability, affordability, and the overall conditions people are living in. The housing market in Jackson is tight right now, y'all. I mean, it's tight. I get calls every single day from people that can't find housing, that are they're looking for a landlord list. Let me just be the first to tell you that there is no more landlord list, okay? The landlords meet monthly in the association. They call the Landlord Association. And they feel that it's best that they just post their openings when they have them, which is understandable. Right now, there are hundreds of people that are struggling to find housing. So imagine being a local landlord and you're getting hundreds of calls every single day, right? So they felt that wasn't good for them either, which is not. Because I mean, it's hard on your mental health when you realize that you can't help everybody, right? I hate to turn people away. I hate to say that there's no funding available right at this time. You know, it crushes me. So I could understand how some of these landlords would feel when they're getting 300-400 calls a week, you know, from people looking for housing and they just don't have anything available, right? So we're talking about the availability, right? But the housing market right now, we got a vacancy rate of less than 4%, which means that many places just ain't available out there. And what happens is it makes it the ones that are available now they become more expensive because they have a premium. Now landlords can take their time when going through applicants and they can actually search and find and wait until they find the best applicant available. You know, that wasn't something that they were able to do before because there were so many options available. So people were able to find housing very easy. But now that it's tight, the ones that do have housing available, they know they have applications, like 50 applications. That's my grandbabies in the background, y'all. You know, don't worry, we real on the Community Soldier podcast. But so there's just a lack of available housing right now, right? So there's no available housing right now. So folks are struggling, especially low income families, veterans, those facing homelessness. This is like a real big problem right now, and we got limited options. So a lot of people are just stuck in situations where they accept whatever's available, you know, even if it's not like a good situation, which is sad because we see this quite often in the work that we do, where we're trying to help people that are living in the street. And sometimes I'm gonna be real with y'all. The only people that will accept, you know, these type of clients sometimes are the landlords that just aren't so good. You know, it just is what it is. So a lot of times we want to go after the landlords and we want to attack the landlords for not keeping up the quality of standard, but there's really only a limited amount of landlords that are willing to take most homeless people from off of the street. That's just a real thing right now, right? So I've talked to some of people out there in the streets, like you know me. I'm out there. I go to the shelter weekly sometimes. I'm out there every day, fighting a good fight, helping veterans with veteran housing. Fortunately, right now there's funding for veterans. There should never be a homeless veteran right now because there's funding for veterans that are facing homelessness. For families that are facing eviction, there's there's funding for you too. I'm going to talk about that later. But you know, I'm out there talking to folks. The stories are crazy. The stories are heartbreaking. You know, families forced to cram up into small apartments. People living in places that's falling apart, but they ain't got no choice, right? Because there's nothing else available to them. So it's really like making it to the point where a lot of people just can't even survive with this type of thing going on. You know, you're going to see families become homeless at a greater rate, especially as the time goes on, right? We had over, I think they dropped over 1,000 vouchers last year for Section 8, which is now called HCV, Housing Choice Voucher. But I don't know what's the conversion rate of how many of those families actually got a voucher and got housed. Somebody find those numbers for me, because what I saw was that when those vouchers dropped, there wasn't 1,000 houses, there weren't 1,000 apartments available at that time to even sustain that many vouchers. But you know, what do we know? So we got a lot of people needing housing. There's not enough housing, and the quality of what's available really, you know, especially for affordability. You know, they did build those new apartments downtown, but simply I can't afford them because I can't even show them the income requirements. I believe a studio apartment in the towers that they built, the Louis Glick apartments, I think that's $1,000 a month for the studio. So me by myself, I would show I make 3,000. Me and my wife together probably could show that, but that would be crazy, for a studio apartment. You know what I mean? So I can imagine what single mothers that need a 3 bedroom, whereas the 3 bedrooms there, you're talking about $1,500-$1,600 a month. It just wouldn't be affordable for most families, right? So let's talk about the challenges that are keeping us in this mess, right? First off, we got to look at why is rent so high and why affordable housing is so hard to come by. It's not just about like the supply and demand. It's also about our local economics. We got folks that are struggling just to make ends meet. And when your income isn't rising above your cost of living, that's when you figure something's got to change. Right now, Jackson County is seeing more than 3,000 eviction filings every year. 3,000 eviction filings every year. That's a lot of families at risk of losing their homes. And once you're out, it's hard to find somewhere else new. You know what I mean? You got the eviction on your record. It's hard to find another landlord to rent to you after that point. So what happens is now you got to either end up hopping from couch to couch, or worse, you out in the streets. You out in the streets. You can go to the shelter maybe if they have room, but the shelter also has a limit. I don't know what the limitations are on how many times you can go to the shelter or how long you can stay. So it's not just the housing issue. This is a whole community issue as a whole. It affects the kids. It affects our health. It affects everything. So here's when it gets even more real, when you really start to break down a lot of the other things that are causing like our housing shortage, our housing crisis that we in right now, right? You got predatory landlords, of course. We all know about that. We all know about that. They don't fix the housing up. They don't do nothing to update their apartments. They infest it with bugs, all of that. So you got people living in terrible conditions and forced to deal with that, right? But it's not even just that, right? We have to look at what's really happening. Look at who are buying up all the houses now. You're seeing a lot of businesses, a lot of corporations buying up houses. Most of the trailer home communities, the manufactured home communities now are owned by corporations out of state. So what are they doing, right? What are they doing? They're doing next to nothing. These people come here, they buy up all of the property around because it's cheap, especially in comparison to the markets that they live in, and then they hire maybe one worker or some management company to barely manage their company, manage their property, and they don't even, most of them don't even check up on those properties. They don't spend any money on rehabbing those properties. So what are you stuck with? You're stuck with the city of Jackson getting over 500 complaints a year about housing code violations. Housing code violations. A lot of these issues aren't getting fixed. We know this. I get so many calls a week from people. So many calls a week from who? Real families who can't afford to go anywhere else. Anywhere else. I don't know if you guys are seeing this live, but you can comment. You should be able to comment here, and I should be able to see it and respond. So if you guys are watching, leave me a comment. Let me know that you're watching. And if not, you're going to have to catch this video back. It will be available on YouTube as well as Facebook. Right? So we got over 3,000 evictions a year, 500 people complaining a year about their current housing, not enough housing to accommodate all of the people that need housing. So the housing that's available is now going up. And now what's going to happen to these families? What's going to happen to these families? So we got to start doing something as a people, right, to address this crisis, to address some of the things that's happening, right? What are we doing about it? We're not just sitting back, like on our thumbs and our hands and knees, not really thinking about the issue or trying to fix the issue. No, that's what this podcast is about. Real community soldiers, right? We got real community soldiers in this community that are out here every day, boots on the ground. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to highlight that for a second. I'm still learning how to work this app here, man. But I had a video for y'all to watch. I don't know, but I really wanted y'all to watch this video. I don't even know where it's at. Y'all know how I do. I just jump right in. But it's got a lot of features that I can't wait to show y'all. You know what I mean? A lot of things we can do on the side. I can start some of the teachings, like actually doing the screen on screen, picture in picture, all different things like that. So this is going to be an interesting new way to communicate with everybody. And I'm really excited about this. So bear with me as we learn. And each week we'll get better and better with this. And I'll be able to show y'all more resources and give y'all more information than what I can normally give in just a quick post. So let's talk about some of the agencies that's really out here doing the work. First of all, you got one of the agencies that I work for, Community Action Agency, right? We're providing right now emergency housing assistance, helping folks with rental support, and even doing weatherization services to make homes safer and more energy efficient. They're a real lifeline for a lot of families in need. One of the first places to go to, as we are the hire for Jackson. Then there's the United Way of Jackson County. They're offering financial assistance to people to keep them in their homes, supporting eviction prevention and connection to housing services. United Way has been a big player in trying to keep people from slipping through the cracks. And don't forget about your local Love Inc. They're also coordinating all kinds of support for families, verifying homelessness. They're doing things like getting people their things in need, including housing assistance, and they're really good at connecting people to resources. And you also have, not last but not least, you have RIA, which is Residents in Action. They are also out here, boots on the ground, out here supplying emergency housing services for people. They have a shelter that they're working on. We're going to be getting some updates on that soon. Hopefully we can get Ms. Tasha Carter or one of the representatives from RIA onto the show to talk about it and give us some updates of what they're doing out here for the community. Definitely can't forget about some of our other organizations that are out here doing the work, but we're going to be mentioning y'all as the days and the weeks go by. So I don't want to spoil too much because we're going to have some really good people on the show. So let's talk about some of the solutions available, right? And we ain't going to just always talk about the problems, right? What can we actually do to fix, like, this mess that we in? Like, what can we do? Like, what do we really need to focus our attention on? I personally think we need to focus first on affordable housing developments. We need more apartments for affordable housing. And what I mean by affordable housing, I mean houses that come with apartments that come with vouchers, subsidized apartments. We need more of them. Why we need more of them? Because every subsidized apartment complex that you could think of, the house families, young families, Chalet Terrace, Blair Park, Park Forest, um, Abbey Villas, whatever the new name is called, Canterbury's, whatever that new name is called, I forget. All of these apartments that have subsidized housing. I go to all of them. I talk to the property managers. They all have extremely long waiting lists. Extremely long waiting lists. And I mean, just look at the stats of how many babies are being born in our county, right? You look at the stats. Somebody looked those up. And you start to see more women are having children and they need housing. They need housing. More families need housing. We need more 3 and 4 bedrooms specifically. A lot of people, a lot of families need more 5 and 6 bedrooms. I'm seeing they're looking for, and those aren't even available in the current market. 5 and 6 bedrooms are not available in the current market. So people that have 7 children, 8 children, they're gonna have to stick with dealing with a 4 if they can find one. And 4s are very hard to find in today's market. A 4 bedroom will run you at least $1,300 to $1,500 in Jackson market right now. And I know a lot of people they comment from other cities and other states, and they say, man, the 1,500 a month, that's not bad, man. I've been paying that, da da da. And I always try to express to them that where you live, the market might be a lot higher, right? But in your market, you go look at the average income for the people that live in your market. Jackson is crazy. Jackson, first of all, the county, the average income is like maybe 50,000, right? Is the average income in Jackson. But if you really break that down to the average income on people that live on the south side of town, the south side of town, right? You'll start to find out that the average income of the person that lives on the south side is less than 20,000 a year. It's like something crazy. And then let's not even talk about people that are on fixed incomes like disability. Like on the screen, hey y'all, people with disability, right? You're only getting a fixed income of like 900 a month. That's it. That's all you get. So you multiply that by 12. You see what I'm saying? You're not even making 15,000 a year. So what can you show that you can afford with that little bit of money, right? You can't show that you can afford $1,000 apartment when you only make 917 for the month on a fixed income, right? So we need more affordable housing complexes. More. We need more apartments that can hold 300-400 families, because then that'll start accommodating for the influx of people, of families that are starting to come upon eviction, the families that are struggling, the families that need assistance, right? We also know that the city is being progressive in their own way, right? I might not agree with everything that they do, but they are adding 100 homes to Jackson, which is greatly going to affect a lot of families. I mean, 100 families can be possibly into their own homes real soon. I just hope that it's 100 families from Jackson that need the housing. That's my biggest thing. I want that house. I want those houses to go to people that deserve those houses. And what I mean by deserve those houses, I mean this. Like, I know some really hard-working people here in Jackson that have been trying to buy their first home. Like they're trying to buy their first home, but when you come from poverty, generational poverty, the amount of roadblocks that are in your path, people really have no idea the amount of roadblocks that are in your path when you're a person that comes from generational poverty. First of all, just to understand this small fact, people that are in poverty pay way more for the regular products that most people enjoy on their day-to-day basis. I mean, just look at buying a car, right? Somebody like me in poverty, I have to go to one of these buy here, pay here lots and subject myself because of my credit, right? We're not taught credit generationally, right? I was kicked to the Air Force as a young kid, young man. I knew nothing about credit. I knew nothing about even balancing a checkbook. Debit cards were just getting popular in 2002. I didn't even know how to balance a debit card, right? I didn't know about anything. There are no classes on credit, educating on you on investing, none of those things, right? And when you're in the military, all they do is just, hey, I have this, sign your name on this paper. You have good credit, sign your name on this paper, right? And nobody teaches you about managing those things. As a young, immature man, young kid, I destroyed my credit. So now, here, later, I'm like most people in poverty. I have to subject myself to high APRs, right? High interest rates. You go to one of these buy here, pay here lots. I ain't gonna name no names. It ain't about destroying no other by your hustle or their business. But you know what I'm talking about. Some of these local buy here, pay here places. Everybody's approved. You look at your interest rate. A lot of times you're paying 24 to 29% interest. 29% interest. Imagine that, man. From there, you're paying the car 3 times over. A lot of times you're paying the car 3 times over. So just for some of the small comforts that most people have and enjoy, when you're in poverty, you have to spend more for those same items. You have to spend more. Most people, they don't, and people that have never lived in poverty and never had to deal with those choices, they look from the outside and they look at your choices as being foolish, and they don't understand. But they don't know what it feels like to not be able to afford to buy a new couch like everybody else can. So the only way that you can buy a couch for your apartment is that you go to Rent-A-Center and you pay 3 times as much for that nice couch that just like your mama had. You gotta spend 3 times as much for it. Or your son need a computer for school. Your son need a computer for school. You can't afford the $500-$600 right now. That's more than your rent right now. So you got to go to Rent-A-Center and you got to get them $20 a week, and you're gonna end up spending 3 times as much for that same computer that somebody else can buy, out of Sam's Club, no problem, Best Buy, no problem, cash, or swipe it on their card where they're only paying 6 to 7% interest. That's the difference. So when you're in poverty, you're spending twice as much. So the inflation is killing us faster. It's killing us faster. I've often said to my wife, I said, we're making more than we ever have, ever, but yet we still don't have any money. Like I have a successful business and we're still not making any money. How is that? I mean, we're making money, but it's not equating to us having more money. You see what I'm saying? It's like you're making more at work, but at the same time, you're looking like my bills is high. I'm paying $1,100 on the house. 1,100 on the house. Well, we're buying ours, manufactured home. We had to go that route, which I tell you, I've been telling a lot of people, for if you're running out of options, that might be the way to go. You know, for me, I was running out of options, and it's because of the amount of discrimination our landlords are allowed to do. I mean, as a formerly incarcerated person, I have to answer a question on every application that says, "Are you a felon?" And once you answer that question on that application, it's like 100% rate of denial. I keep calling them Abbey Villas, but I remember in 2020 maybe I was working at Reed Manor, and I was like, man, I need to find another place. The all the kids had grew up and moved out of the house, right? So it was just me and the wife, and we were paying for a 3-bedroom house on Stewart at the time. And I'm like, man, I'm working a good job, you working a good job. We should just condense down to an apartment for a minute and really stack this money, and I could put that extra money behind the all for less, right? Good decision to make right at the time. I'm like, this is the only logical thing to really do. So I look at it like, look, peace, family. Thank you for tapping in. So I tried to apply for the Abbey Villas. I was working at Reed Manor, like I said, for Jackson Housing Commission. Well over $20 an hour, great pay, 401k, whole nine. Wife was working at the hospital. As soon as they seen that felon on the application, denied. Now me, I've been through plenty fair housing trainings in Michigan, right? I'm like, hold on. Michigan state law, according to the Fair Housing Act of Michigan, says that you have to give me a chance to explain myself and fight my case, right? You can't just deny me for having a felony. That's just not something that you're allowed to do. Blanket denials is what they call them. They're supposed to actually take reasonable, like look at your situation, ask some follow-up questions. How long ago was that felony, right? What kind of felony was it, right? Because if you're a nonviolent felon like me, right, that has been clean for over 10 years and can show consistency, that shouldn't be a problem. Why are you denying people that have felonies from over 20 years ago when they haven't been in trouble, right? We're not even allowing for redemption in people. So that's part of the problem that was happening for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that were formerly incarcerated now who are being blanket denied housing because they have a felony. Like, I don't understand why people are outraged about that, right? A person that commits a crime, right? They're being punished by the state. They go to jail, they go to prison, whatever the case may be. They get parole. They come home on parole. They have to complete parole, which is hard to do. Most people don't. They never complete parole. Most people, right? But for the guys that complete parole, they get off of parole, and they out here restarting their life. One of the most essential pieces to the equation is housing, right? Jobs. And we're telling these men and women that they don't deserve to have a job and that they don't deserve to have a place to live. Like, how crazy is that? Like, we're denying them housing because they have a felony on their record without taking a proper look to see what was going on in this person's life. What happened to them that made them, let's just not just look at, go look at the stats right now. People that are formerly incarcerated that come home and start families. Go look at the numbers of that and how many of those people return. Very low, my friend. The numbers show that people that come home and then they start building what I call roots into the community, they start sowing seeds into the community, they want to be here in that community for their families. And they're going to need housing. So we got to do our part, right? And being part of the solution. And we got to advocate for these families, for these men and women that need housing. Because to me, it was crazy to me that I worked at Reed Manor as a housing stability case manager, saving people housing every single day, going to court, advocating for people, fighting for families to stay in their house. And I was getting denied on the daily, right? On the daily. I couldn't understand that. So these are the things that we got to fix, right? We need to be out here advocating for some changes. All right, that means getting out, voting in our local elections, supporting candidates who care about housing, and we need to start holding our leaders accountable, man. We need to hold our leaders accountable. People get upset and they get mad when people make noise. And y'all need to look at why they respond in that way. You have to look at why they're responding that way, with anger, when all we're doing is asking questions. All we're doing is asking, why aren't we getting the same fair and equitable treatment? Why do we have systems that are on our backs, man? That's the thing. People think that when you come from this stance that we make out here in the community, that we're coming from a standpoint of lack of accountability, personal accountability. Oh, you always want to blame it on the man, and blame it on this, and blame it on that, without taking personal accountability and responsibility for what you have personally become. Well, let me be the first to tell you, like, that's BS. And it's BS because we understand ACEs, trauma, we understand generational poverty, what that does on the mind of a young person. People in poverty, they can't be held to the same standard of decision making as you, because people in trauma, studies have shown that their brains don't even develop in the same way as a person who doesn't experience trauma on a regular basis. And then think about people that have suffered generational trauma for hundreds of years. Let me take y'all to where I'm from, Plainfield, New Jersey. Right? Small black town, mostly black and Hispanic. Most of my friends didn't have fathers in their lives. Most of my friends, we had mothers addicted to crack cocaine in the 80s and 90s. Y'all know this is a epidemic that was hurled upon our people by our very own government. Y'all all watch the same show, Snowfall. We know that our government used drugs in the 70s and 80s to fund their wars. They used our fathers, our mothers, to peddle their products, because no drug dealer was flying these drugs over here. Look at stories like, look up a story, Larry Davis, a man who shot over 25 police officers. He was running for his life. And it was because he was selling drugs for the police officers. The police officers came to him when he was a young 15, 16-year-old kid, impressionable, and they made him start selling dope for them. Made him, introduced him to the life, gave him his drugs to sell. And then when he refused to be part of the destruction of his community anymore, they tried to kill him. They tried to unalive that man, our own government. And y'all don't gotta believe me. Go look it up. Go look it up. I come from that product of the 80s, born in the 80s. I witnessed the destruction that our government put on our communities. No funding for our school systems. Couldn't even take the textbooks home, all the textbooks home. I remember sitting in classes, you couldn't even take the textbook home, the math book. You know, how you supposed to learn like that? They ain't giving us no chance. There was no way out in these circumstances. And people that preach accountability, they have no idea what it's like to have to try to go to school and concentrate when your mama addicted to drugs. I got several friends that lived that life. I watched personally. Friends that had to hold their clothes over at another friend's house so their mama wouldn't sell their stuff while they was at school. Friends that had to get out here and hustle in the streets at a very young age just so that they could look the same way as the other children in class. Friends that had to get out here and steal and all this just so that they could survive because their mama was too high to feed them. Right? Most people have no idea what it's like to go through life in these circumstances, right? We all live in this bubble where we think that everybody's life is the same and people just making bad choices, and that's what makes their life the way that they is. And it ain't about the bad choices. We're not seeing why they making these choices. We ain't seeing the fight that they had to fight to get to where they had to make that choice. Because we so used to our comfortable lives in the bubble, right? Look at my cat trying to get in the video. Get on somewhere. We so used to our own lives that we don't think about the trauma that's happening in our communities, the mental health problem that's happening in our community. It's time that we start really looking at what's going on. So we're not coming from a space of, oh, woe is me. But now we coming from a place where we tired of being subjected to these systems, right? We getting angry. That's why we need community soldiers, people that's willing to speak up and stand up and fight against these people. To go in front of a congressman, to go in front of your senators and say, yo, this ain't right. And let me tell you why this ain't right. That's what we need. We don't need these subconscious people that's on their high horse that's telling you, oh, you can do it, all you gotta do is do this, that. You ain't never when I see people that do that, I said they have no idea what it's like really living with trauma. I have a high A score over 7, right? My A score is over 7, high, right? I have trauma. I've been in prison. I have real trauma in my life. I've seen people killed. You know, I've seen a lot of things, witnessed a lot of things, trauma. And then I witness trauma in our community daily, right? Real close to, all the time. It never stops, right? I have to deal with my mental health and my mental, I was diagnosed years ago with bipolar major depression, right? Disorders like, what do you call it? Oppositional defiance disorder, don't like boss and all of that stuff. These are things that I had to learn how to deal with. I never understood why I made the decisions that I made when I was younger. I never understood trauma or the effects of trauma. And I'd always get asked, why are you doing the things that you're doing? Why are you making the decisions that I am? Maybe it's because of the trauma that I went through, this, that. And you start to realize, oh, yes, you didn't live the average person's life. You start to realize that there's nothing fair about life. There's nothing equal about us as Americans. What's equal? You have some children that get born to parents in poverty, some parents that don't care about them, and you got some kids that get born to parents that have everything because their families were slave owners at one point in time. They had generations and generations and generations of free work, free labor, and they stacked up family riches that get passed down from generation to generation to generation. And they're able to educate their children from generation to generation to generation. And here, 300, 400 years later, right? We all free, right? And everybody like, oh, what's wrong with y'all? Why can't y'all catch up? Well, you start to realize that there's systems still in place right now, rules, laws, all of that right now being in place, to keeping us in position, redlining us still redlining us still. They just find different ways to do it, and they use these systems in these organizations. So I say that to say this, like, we got to start standing up and opening our mouths, showing up to these community meetings, showing up to vote, making educated decisions about who's gonna be running our lives, right? It's a lot of stake out here, and if we ain't a part of the solution, we're just gonna be part of the problem, y'all. All right, y'all. That's it for today's episode. We covered a little bit, but it's important because this housing crisis, it ain't going away unless we do something about it. We talked about the state housing in Jackson, the challenges we're facing, and the folks that are out here trying to make a difference, right, in the community. We also looked at ways that we can get involved. Remember, this isn't about housing, it's about our community, it's about our health and our future. So let's get out here, start making some noise, man. Support our local organizations and fight for Jackson where everybody can have a safe place, right, to call home. That's just a basic necessity that everybody deserves, in my opinion. Thanks for tuning in to the Community Soldier Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. We're going to keep talking about the local issues here that matter, and together we're going to make a difference. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.